What's up, everybody? This is Duelist 101. I'm Mason,
I'm Zach.
and we wanted to try to put together a podcast that was here to help the beginners. And Zach, kind of like you've talked about before, some things that you wish you would have known when you started playing the game. So, how did
So
you
much.
how did you start learning to play Yu-Gi-Oh?
I actually learned to start playing the game because one of my buddies went and he one day goes and says, "I have this deep dark secret," and it was like, I don't know what's about to happen, and then he pulls out Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So, I never got to really play as a kid, but now that I'm a little older, I'm getting to relive those glory days, and so here we are. So I started uh, by going, and he bought me a structure deck, and I played with that for a little bit, and then he had just a bunch of old cards that he never planned on touching because he didn't like the artwork. So I started playing with those, um, and so since then I've just kind of kept playing. It's been a lot of fun to get to play, and I don't know. I got started on playing Duel Links to get comfortable and confident with how everything worked. And it was good. It was good. But now I play Cubics as my
Nice.
primary deck, and I love it. I think it's the best. So, what about you, Mason? How did you get started in playing Yu-Gi-Oh?
Man, I had this really annoying brother that
Man, that guy must be the worst.
um nah Zach, you got me into this game. And my little brother put it perfect. Whenever Zach gets like obsessed with something, I have to get obsessed with it and be better than him at it. So here we are.
That's exactly.
So I got
Oh
super
my
into it.
god.
I Zach gave me a bunch of Phantom Knights cards, and so that has been the deck that I've been working to break for I don't even know how long. Um,
Since
and
December, so
yeah, no,
so
it's
that's
been a while.
6 months now, I think.
Yeah, yeah, finally picking up on the thing. So yeah, it's I know there was such a huge learning curve that I would have loved to pick up on, and so guys, this is why we put this together. Um, So today we're going to be covering some of the simpler game mechanics: the normal summon, the tribute summon, and the fusion summon. So, Zach, any words before we kick it off?
I'm excited. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it. Welcome to class.
All right, guys. So, in the game of Yu Gi Oh!, there has to be some kind of way to get monsters on the board. Otherwise, you can't play much of a game, um, or it's just really, really hard to do anything with it. So, hashtag Sky Striker, who uses 99% spells. But in the game of Yu Gi Oh!, while we're doing this kind of thing, there's two main types of summon mechanics that you have to do. And those are a normal summon or a special summon. Now, a normal summon is called a normal summon because usually it happens every turn. And with the normal summon, it has to fit this sort of category in order to get on the field at the very beginning of the game. So, and some important to note is when you normal summon, it has to be in attack position, which is vertical to you. So, with a normal summon, if it is turn one, I'm just trying to get some monsters on the field, and I have a couple monster cards in my hand. I have to check one thing. I have to check if they are level 4 or below. And the way I do that is I check the number of stars that are on top of the card. So if I have this level 4 monster, then I can go and say, I normal summon this. I can put it in whatever monster zone I want. I normal summon this, and that's that. And if there's any effect, that's great, but sometimes there's not. So that's all a normal summon kind of is. in its very basic form. So, Mason, what is a tribute summon, which is another type of normal summon?
So tribute summon is like it kind of falls under the umbrella of a normal summon. For a tribute summon, your monster will have 5 or more stars, all right, at the top of the card. And so if it has 5 or 6 stars, you will have to tribute a monster. So what that means is, say you have a monster on the field. I've got, I'll use my Phantom Knights. I have the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak on the field. He's a level 3, so I was able to normal summon him regularly. But I decide I want to bring out Elegy, the Melodious Diva. All right, 2 totally different groups, but Elegy is a 5-star monster. All right, so I would have to tribute my Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak and place the Phantom Knights of Ancient Cloak in the graveyard in order to normal summon, tribute summon Elegy. Now, that's for levels 5 or 6 monsters. If it's anything higher than that, unless the card text says something very explicitly different about it, you will tribute summon 2 monsters. So let's use Ancient Gear as an example. If you have 2 Ancient Gear howitzers on the field, all right, normal monsters. Or yeah,
Howitzer's a fusion monster, buddy.
Oh shoot.
That's all right. So, like, if I have a couple Ancient Gear soldiers, they're both level 4s, just easy stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then I want to pull Ancient Gear Golem just to keep in the same archetype.
Yeah.
If I want to go and pull Ancient Gear Golem, then I can go and sacrifice these 2 monsters that are on the field by sending them to the graveyard, and now I get to summon this big bad boy, Ancient Gear Golem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So those are the kinds of normal summon. All right. There's normal. There's tribute. Everything else past this point is going to be considered a special summon. A special summon is essentially special summoning, or it's essentially summoning from anywhere that it will usually mention somewhere in its card text name, or it's summoning from an untraditional place. So normally if you were going to normal summon, you would normal summon from your hand. But if you wanted to special summon something, it may come from your deck. It may come from your extra deck. It may come from your graveyard or the banished zone, even. But a special summon comes from just about anywhere. A normal summon will always come from your hand. So today, our big topic is fusion summoning. All right. So, Zach, I'm going to turn this over to you. You get it a little bit better. A lot of my stuff is not fusion summoning. So, Zach, this is all you, pal.
All right. So, fusion summoning is the essential idea of when you had 2 pieces of clay and you smashed them together to see what happened. So, in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, sometimes you don't want to do all that it takes to go and tribute summon. Sometimes that can take a long time. So, that being the case, I want to go and mix these 2 monsters that are either on the field or in my hand based on the spell card that I want to use for it. And I want to throw them together, but a lot of monsters require something in order to actually go and be put together. I can't just kind of decide, hey, I'm going to put these together. That does happen, but we get into that later. So with this, we use a card at its very basic form. We use a card called polymerization. And polymerization just fuses monsters together. So if you've ever watched the anime, the best example I can think of is something that Yugi played over and over again, which was Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast. This one fusion monster that required Berfomet, and another one to go and create this beast. And it had decent attack. It showed up in a whole lot of the duels. And another example is in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, which is round 2 of the series of Yu-Gi-Oh! Animes, with Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, which is one of Jaden Yuki's favorite monsters. And that requires Elemental Hero Burstinatrix and Elemental Hero Avian. And the way we see that is by going and looking at whatever the card text says. So that to say, we go and when we're using polymerization, we have to have something in the extra deck that allows us to do it, because the extra deck is where we store all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. So
we use
hold on,
polymerization.
Jack. So
Fire away.
these fusion monsters are in the extra deck.
Right.
You will not find them in the main deck.
That is absolutely correct. So anytime we have some monster that is not a regular monster or a spell or a trap, any card that says that, then it is going to be in the extra deck. And that includes things, we'll get into all of the different summoning mechanics, but that includes fusion monsters, that includes XZ, that includes links, that includes synchros, that includes everything like that. So
yeah. All right. Cool. So you use polymerization to fuse two monsters together. And so I feel like this is a good time to point out polymerization is, even though it's like the primary spell card that will fuse two monsters together, it's not the only one.
absolutely.
Some archetypes or groups of cards use different kinds of fusion spells. For example, the different dimension demon archetype uses the card Dark Contract with the Swamp King. And so that card has the same exact effect. It says on the card text that it allows you to summon a fusion monster from your extra deck. Let me pull up exactly what it says. It says you can fusion summon one fiend type fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. So, so that
Now,
is
Mason, are there any more specialized type things? Because that one sounds like just works with fiends, even though it is used much more in the DDD series. Are there any cards that are even more specific than that?
Yes. So, the key thing with most of these cards that that fuse monsters together, but they're from a very specific kind of archetype, they usually have added text that benefits using that card in a specific archetype. So, for example, if we look at the invoked engine, its first line says fusion summon one fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand as fusion material. Easy enough, right? It doesn't say that you have to summon any specific kind, but you get benefits if you do. The next line says, if summoning an invoked fusion monster this way, you can also banish monsters from your field and or either player's graveyard as fusion material. So there's extra benefits to using some of these cards in their specific
Absolutely.
archetype.
If
Yeah.
I could mention real quick, just one of the terms you used earlier, you talked about the invoked engine. So engine is just a couple cards that make the deck work well, right?
Right. So one archetype is the Shadal archetype, and a lot of people love to throw in the invoked engine, just a few cards that kind of make the invoked cards work well. Or excuse me, they make the deck work well together. Um, so you can throw in a couple engines of different cards in order to make a deck better than just sticking to one archetype. So, Zach, I think the next thing is yours. Tell us a little bit about when on Earth you might not use the spell card polymerization.
Oh my goodness. All right. So we mentioned this real briefly earlier. There's something called contact fusion, which if you watch Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, you know all about this. And if you don't quite understand this after this, I highly recommend go watch the series. It's on Hulu. So when you are going and working, especially with the elemental heroes, especially the Neospatians, is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a prime example, I'll get into a couple more examples here in a second. Elemental Hero Neos allows for some extra variety in how you fusion summon. And what I mean by that is a lot of the extra deck monsters that feature Neos plus something else.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if I can find one real quick, we are going to see what we can find here. So, what is a good example that we can talk about right here? Here should be a good one. We have, here we go. This is Elemental Hero Air Neos, which is a version of a fusion monster, and it features Elemental Hero Neos and one of the other Neospatians that are featured in the deck. So here's what the card text says. It says, this card can only be special summoned from your extra deck by returning the above card you control to the deck. So you would go take the cards off the field and shuffle them back into the deck. It says you do not use polymerization. And then it has some effect, everything like that. But anytime you have contact fusion, that is how it's being done. It's just by going and sort of filling whatever requirement it says during that little piece. And another great example that's been especially meta relevant here recently, and a lot of people are trying to fight for ways to get it back to it, is the ABC archetypes, like ABC Dragon Buster and things like that, because
Mm-hmm.
they also use a contact fusion type mechanic. So another example of a very fast and furious deck that actually just got back. No, that was Ritual Beast. Gladiator Beasts use this idea a whole lot, and a lot of it goes with something called quick effects, which are effects that can happen anytime. And so the Gladiator Beasts get to go and fuse together, attack, and then they'll fuse back out or like defuse anything. And they'll be able to attack like 3 times with these little monsters. And they're a really, really good fast deck. But the whole idea of contact fusion is somewhere on the fusion card that you are trying to summon, it'll say, you do not use polymerization to summon this monster, or something like that. And it'll tell you how you need to be summoning that card. So, like I said, if all that stuff didn't make sense, please go check out Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. It is all over the place. And if you have Hulu, check it out. I highly recommend it, and it's a lot of fun to get to use.
Yeah. Zach, like you said, this is just such a really cool concept that is still being used a lot. This is probably, I would think, one of the larger pools of monsters that you can reach into.
I'd agree.
So I think that covers everything that we wanted to cover. Guys, if you
hold up. If I could mention just real quick, there's a couple what's called fusion support cards, which are ways to get fusion cards in your hand. Right. So an example of that is some called fusion conscription. And essentially what the text says is you can go and reveal a fusion monster in your extra deck, and then you can go and add one of the materials for that card to hand. So sometimes that's really useful, but the downside of fusion conscription is now you can't use that card's named effects for the rest of the turn. So, and then there's cards like the Keeper of Dragon Magic, which is a monster that as soon as it's normal summoned, you get to add a polymerization or fusion card to hand. So it's really, really useful. And then there's cards like Ancient Gear Golem, Ultimate Pound, which is the super beast of Ancient Gears. Or one of them, I guess. There's a whole lot of them. But what it does
they're all
is
beatdown cards.
They all do it, man. But let's find it real quick. Here we go. What it does is it can't be special summoned. If this card on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add a polymerization from deck to hand, and if you do, add another Ancient Gear monster from graveyard to hand. So now you can set yourself up to go infusion summon next turn or during main phase 2, and so it works out really, really nice to get to do all that.
Well, awesome.
That's all.
Sorry, bud, you cut out.
Oh, I was just saying that's all I had to mention on that. So
Gotcha. So, all right, guys, if you have any extra questions or anything that you felt like we could have covered a little better, just let us know in the comments. Rate and review us 5 stars, please. That would be super helpful. And we hope that this helps you to get some more of your friends into the game that we all know and love. I think if we can take one step in building this community together a little more effectively, then I think we've done a good job. So, Zach, any last words?
Thank you guys so much for listening. Like Mason was saying, please rate, review, and if you have any questions, throw that either in the comments under this podcast, or if you want to throw it in the review board. We will be reading all this stuff all the time. We want to know what you guys want to know. Over the next few weeks, we'll be talking about various summoning mechanics, or at least over the next few episodes. And we are super excited to get to talk about each one of them. So thank you guys so much for your time. We really do appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And you're dismissed. See you, everybody. Oh, goodness.